So we were talking about polymers and what are the different kinds or structures of polymers. So polymers are basically made by addition of various moles or unit, and the process is called polymerization. And we also know that polymerization may be condensation polymerization or addition polymerization. So in condensation polymerization, various moles they react to each other, and in that process they leave a byproduct which is water. So polymerization is a process like, you see, uh, polystyrene, it reacts to another chain of polystyrene like this. And this is kind of a polymerization process. So various units. So this is one mer, and this mer reacts to another mer, and in that process it makes a long molecular chain, and this process is called polymer. It generally takes place in presence of some initiator, okay, or you can say catalyst. So in condensation polymerization there is a byproduct which is water. In there is another form of polymerization process which is addition polymerization, and in addition polymerization there is no byproduct actually. So this kind of polymerization is also called chain growth or chain reaction. While in condensation it is called stepwise growth. So in this chain reaction, this polymerization happens generally at a very high rate. That is why they say it is chain growth. In stepwise, the polymerization takes place over a long period of time, and it takes place in steps, in various steps. So that is why in most of the commercial purpose polymerization process, they generally happen due to addition polymerization. Also, it does not release any byproduct. So waste is low, and the reason why addition polymerization takes place at very high rate is because of the presence of some initiator. So an initiator is generally added in order to break the bond or in order to open the double bond between carbon atoms, so that the monomers can be formed, or a chain of molecules can be formed. Let's talk about what are the various characteristics of polymer. So polymers, as you know, they are made of various units, a long chain. And just like metals, they also possess some kind of characteristics. The very first thing is their characteristics is molecular weight. The molecular weight of polymer molecules are really high. It's because they are made by a long chain of molecules and not one single molecule. So there are a lot of units which are also called moles, and higher the molecular weight, greater is the chain length. Okay. Which actually means that uh, addition polymerization process results in polymers which have large molecular weight. Large molecular weights are also mostly very dense polymers. This polymerization process is actually a very random event, and this polymer chains they produced, they are not of equal size. So in a polymer, the repeating units may not repeat itself, and the molecular weight of each unit may be different. So that is why the term called average molecular weight is more relevant for polymers. Uh, so just give me 5 minutes. I need to change the room because there is a lot of noise. Give me 5 minutes. Okay, so I hope you can listen me now. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, so we were talking about this polymer characterization, and this molecular weight of polymers is really high compared to metals. That is one important difference between the metals and polymers. The other thing is that this molecular weight is not constant for polymers. It changes because the polymerization itself is a very random event. It's a chemical reaction, and it does not result in uniform molecular formation throughout the material, and that is why we generally use the term called average molecular weight in terms of polymers. So this average molecular weight, it plays a very important role as far as properties of polymers are concerned. So molecular weight distribution, it affects the polymers, their density, their thermal property, their mechanical property. The other thing is the bonding. So we know that these monomers are linked together with a covalent bond, and these covalent bonds, they are also called primary bonds, or and then these each must, like if I say there is one unit, let's say it is CS2, then CS2 is connected with H or hydrogen atom with a double bond, uh, or a primary bond or covalent bond, and this covalent bond is very, very strong. This is one unit, and this unit is connected, remains connected to another unit, let's say CS2, by a secondary bond. Okay, and this secondary bond, which is also called sometimes van der Waal bond, van der Waal bonds or secondary bonds are much weaker compared to this primary bond or covalent bond. So there are these two kinds of bondings occurred in polymers. One is primary bond, another is secondary bond. The primary bond is much stronger than secondary bond, and various units are connected to each other by secondary bond, while in themselves they are connected to atoms by primary bonds. And we also know that after this polymerization process, the polymers, they may be linear polymers. I mean, when I say linear, it means that they are connected in a linear structure, the molecules are connected, or they may be branch polymer where they are connected in branches like this, or they may be network polymers where the branches are connected in 3 dimensions. So that makes the uh, that increases the complexity of molecular distribution inside the molecules. But the properties of these polymers, they heavily depend on kinds of these structure. If this structure is linear, or if this structure is branched, or if this structure is networked. this this is nothing but this is kind of an arrangement of molecules inside the polymer. And this branching, if you see the linear polymers, they are simple, they generally rely on single line. But if you see this branched polymer, it means that various units are not connected in a linear fashion, but in a branched fashion. So this branching actually interferes with this relative motion of molecular chain. Uh, so when I say this, it simply means that, let's say there is this branched polymer and there is this another unit which is again a branched polymer like this. So these two molecules may not be able to move with respect to each other easily when you compare the movement of linear polymers. So linear polymers, they can move easily over each other. There is no interference. But here in this branch polymer, there is interference in the relative movement of these molecular chains. And as a result of this resistance, the deformation of branch polymer is difficult. It may not take place easily. And therefore, the the stress which is required or the force which is required to initiate the cracking or deformation is larger in branched polymer. Okay, the branch polymer, or you can say this branch polymer becomes stronger because their molecular arrangement does not allows them to move easily. So, and then there is this complexity much more, this complexity of interference is much more higher in network polymer, because in network polymer the branching takes place in 3 dimensions. Okay, now let's talk about one important characteristics of any material, that is called crystallinity. And crystallinity is a thing which actually differentiates polymers from metals or any material from metals. So most of the metals are highly crystalline. When I say highly crystalline, it means that the same unit cell repeats itself. So if there is a BCC structure inside a metal, okay, then it is highly repeatable like this. Okay, so a metal consists of repeatable unit cells. So each unit cell repeats itself. And this repetition is highly ordered. And in that case, we say it is highly crystalline structure. So metals are highly crystalline structures. In fact, uh, if you talk about steel or copper or gold, they are almost 100% crystalline structures. But polymers are not. The crystallinity of polymers is very poor. So the molecular structure does not repeat itself throughout the material. And in that case, they are generally called amorphous. So I can write polymers or polymeric chains are generally amorphous. So amorphicity is nothing but it is just opposite of crystallinity. Okay, when I say amorphous, it means that there are various phases uh, available inside the material. Amorphicity also refers to molecular structure which are not in a well ordered fashion. So polymers and glass and such materials which are non metals, they are actually characterized by the degree of crystallinity in this way, because it varies uh, to a very high degree when compared to metals. So by controlling this rate of cooling, different kind of crystallinity can be imparted. Okay, the the degree of amorphicity or the degree of crystallinity, this can be distorted or differentiated between different polymers, and it highly depends on the rate of cooling. Okay, so I can write that the crystallinity depends on rate of cooling. Process actually takes place at higher temperature, at very high temperature. Okay, generally more than the melting point of polymers. So there, after heating and after this reaction occurs, the polymers are allowed to cool, and this rate of cooling affects this crystallinity process. So if there is a highly linear polymer, this can become highly crystalline, and also a highly branched polymer can become network polymer if we can properly control the cooling process. But a polymer which has a branch structure or a network structure, they cannot convert into linear polymer. तो लीनियर को आप नेटवर्क या ब्रांच पॉलीमर्स में बदल सकते हैं बाय डिफरेंशिएटिंग और by controlling the rate of cooling, but opposite is not true. It means that the network polymer or the branch polymer, they cannot be converted into the linear polymer. Now let's see how this crystallinity affects. Now here is a question. See, if there is a linear polymer which is connected like this, and then there is a branch polymer which is connected like this. So I'm just making one unit, okay? Then there is another unit, then there is another unit which can be connected to another unit. Similarly here, the density of linear polymers are much more high than the density of branch polymer. Okay, this is one thing you should keep in your mind, because many a times students get confused. The density of linear polymers, it means that because there is no branching, so there is no interference, so each molecule can be connected to another easily, and that is why the the crystallinity of linear polymers are more, and as this crystallinity increases, the polymers become more stiffer, harder, denser, and that ductility gets reduced. Okay, they get less rubbery or more resistance to solvents and heats and chemicals. For example, if you remember, there is a polymer called HDP and LDP. I hope you have heard of, or maybe you have seen the name of this material on various uh, polymer packages available in the market. For example, Amul uses LDP for containing the milk. You know. Similarly, there are high density polyethylene and low density polyethylene. There are these two polymers which are highly in use uh, for different applications because their mechanical strength is high. They can take some load. So SDP is highly crystalline. Okay, this SDP and this kind of polyethylene, this has a specific gravity like 0.94 to 0.97. Okay, this polymer has a specific gravity, a very high specific gravity, generally 0.94 to 0.97. And this kind of polymer is 80 to 90% of part of this is crystalline. So the crystallinity is like 80 to 95%. So this high density, it makes it stronger, it makes it stiffer, it makes this tougher, it reduces its ductility. Okay. The LDPE is approximately 70% crystalline. It's a branched network, okay, and it has a specific gravity which is low compared to high density polyethylene. So its specific gravity is about 0.91 or 0.92. So there is this difference of SDP and LDPE.
Sir,
Huh?
sir, what is the specific gravity source over here?
Specific gravity is the density difference, no? If you remember from your fluid course, the specific gravity simply means the density of one material when compared to the density of water. You know? So when I say the specific gravity is 0.91, it means that it is when compared to water, it is 90%. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So also this a polymer consists of various boundaries, and it is very likely that the polymer consists of a part of crystalline structure and then a part of amorphous structure. For an example, a polymer can be like this. So there is this crystalline part, and then there is this amorphous part which is random. Okay, there is no crystallinity and they are just arranged somewhere. The molecules are arranged. So this part is a crystalline part and this part is amorphous part. And in most of the cases, a polymer consists of, this is a crystalline part and this is amorphous part. So in amorphous part, the molecules are arranged in a very random order, in a very random fashion. In crystalline, they are arranged mostly in linear structure in well-ordered fashion. And polymers consist of both the faces. So if the crystalline part is more, we say it is highly crystalline. So it may go 50%, 60%, remaining 30% will be very random molecular arrangement. this random molecular arrangement, it affects the light. So when we throw some light on the polymers, if there is a lot of amorphicity, then this amorphicity results in opaqueness. Of light, for light. So for an example, glass is 100% amorphous material, and that is why it is transparent. So amorphicity actually results uh, in structures which allow light to pass very easily without interfering with the molecular arrangement. So that is also the reason why they are not very dense, and they result in opaqueness of the material. So all those transparent materials you see, like glass, acrylic, they are 100% amorphous material. And when a material is 100% amorphous, it is very, very difficult to predict its properties. So, and in most of the cases, we consider all the properties as will have average values. Similarly, if you see polycarbonate, all these materials are very much transparent, so amorphicity is very high. So you can say there is no crystallinity of the structure exists there. Another important property of polymers is glass transition temperature. So the glass transition, most of the metals have a fixed melting point. Okay, so metals, for an example, steel in its various configurations, it starts melting between 1394 to 1414, the various phases. The melting point differs, but it is generally very fixed for one particular kind of steel. Similarly, aluminum melts at certain temperature, which is very much fixed. Copper also melts at very fixed temperature. There is no range. But for polymers, there is a range of temperature where the polymer melts. Polymer does not melt at a fixed temperature. So it melts in a range of temperature. For an example, acrylic, it melts between 230 degree to 330 degrees centigrade. The whole of the acrylic will not melt at 230, but certain part of the polymer of the acrylic will melt at 230. So melting will start at 230, and the whole part melts up to 330 degrees centigrade. So there is this big range, that is 100 degree of centigrade. So that is why the polymers cannot be characterized by a fixed melting point, but there is a fixed temperature point where the polymers start turning into a rubbery state. When we heat it, they start turning into a leathery state, a bit viscous state where the solidity starts losing. And this point is called glass transition temperature. Glass transition temperature is a temperature where the polymers start turning into rubber-like structure, okay, or leathery structure. And this is a fixed temperature. And that is the difference between metals and polymers. So a metal is characterized by its melting temperature, but polymers are characterized by its glass transition temperature and not the melting temperature, because the melting takes place over a range of temperature, but the glass transition generally remains fixed. For example, acrylic has a glass transition temperature of 105 degree. So when you heat the acrylic, and as soon as the temperature reaches 105 degrees centigrade, the material starts losing its transparency, and it starts turning into a leathery or a rubbery state. So most of the polymer, most of the acrylic, they start turning into this leathery state at 105 degrees centigrade, and this temperature is called glass transition temperature. Most of the amorphous, here I have given example of acrylic, but most of the amorphous polymers, they don't have any specific melting point, and all of them, they undergo a distinct change in mechanical behavior across this narrow range, which is called glass transition. At glass transition, most of the mechanical properties of polymers, they change. So the temperature at which this amorphous material turns into a color change material or rubbery or leathery is called glass transition. Glass transition temperature can be easily determined over various instruments. One of the most common instrument is called uh, thermogravimetric analysis, TGA. Then there is a DSC, that is differential scanning calorimetry. So in both two instruments, what happens is we heat it, and when we heat it at, let's say we are heating, and with time the temperature is increasing. So at certain degree, there will be some like this, where the temperature will not increase, but and is this zone is actually called glass. Change in the graph shows the glass transition temperature. The polymers, they are not made by only one component. They are generally made uh, by adding some additives, and these additives, sometimes they are called blends. So these polymer blends, they are added into the polymer into very small quantities, and they have various purposes. For an example, there are polymers which are rubber modified polymers. So what they do in rubber modified polymers is they add or they blend some elastomer. Okay, I can write. So polymers blended with elastomers. For what? To improve the brittle behavior. Elastomers are nothing. A simple rubber is a elastomer. Okay, so which actually shows a lot of elastic property. They are elastomers, and when we add these elastomers into polymer, they become brittle. Okay, the ductility it reduce. So sometimes we need the material which are not ductile and which are brittle. In most of the cases, the polymer applications are made for uh, for their brittleness. Okay, so there is this rubber modified polymers, and then when I say brittle, it also means that people don't want material to change its dimension. Okay. Then there it may be various kinds of blends. So in that case, we say polyblends. So polyblends are the polymers which are blended with multiple kinds of blends for different properties. Like for increasing the brittle behavior, they can include elastomers. Then for increasing um, the increasing the surface smoothness, they can add some other materials. A lot of blends are available in the market, and they can be easily added into the polymers in order to improve their various properties as and when required. These blends are can be of miscible nature. It also means that they can mix without the separation of two phases. It's like alloying in the metal. So if the miscible blend generally gets into the molecular structure, and it can mix well with the polymer blends with the polymer. So when I earlier talk about polyblends are nothing with but various additives which can be added into the polymers. So let's talk about what are these additives which can be added into the polymers. All generally available additives. These additives, they have a purpose to improve certain properties or some specific properties. First and the most common additive is filler. What it does is that it increases the hardness, or fillers, they act as hardeners, and they can actually fix the voids inside the molecular structure. So these fillers, they increase the hardness. Used as additives are like wood floor, silica, cellulose, mica, and asbestos. If you see these materials, they are easily available, uh, not very costly, but cheap, and they can be added for improving the strength. hardness, roughness, abrasion resistance, and stiffness. Also, we must note that these properties are greatest at various percentage of these types of polymer filler combination. So a lot of experiments have been done in order to improve the strength, hardness, and there is a particular ratio in which the fillers can be added into the polymers for improving these properties. So it's not that if you add more fillers, the strength will going on increase. So at a certain percentage only they will be greatest. If you remember the tire making process, the tire making process or is called vulcanization. Vulcanization is nothing but adding of sulfur into the polymer or rubber. So sulfur here becomes an agent or an additive which improves the strength, which improves the roughness. So vulcanization is also a process of addition of these kind of blends, and it increases the hardness, increases the strength. The other additive which is used in various polymers are called plasticizers. These plasticizers, they are just opposite to fillers. So they impart flexibility and softness. Strength to increase the hardness or to decrease the hardness. All these things are applicable only when the temperature range is below the glass transition temperature. Above the glass transition temperature, everything happens randomly. So these plasticizers, they are actually low molecular weight solvents and they have very high boiling point. And what they do is that they reduce the strength of secondary bonds, and that is why they make this polymer soft and flexible. Okay, so if you have seen the polymer aprons, or if you have ever wore the polymer raining coats, the raining coats made by polymers, they are soft PVCs and they are made by adding a lot of plasticizers into the polymers. So there is a hard PVC which is used as a pipeline material in your homes for carrying the water. Then there is a soft polymer which can be turned into cloth, which you can wear it during the rainy season. So there is a soft PVC and hard PVC. The soft PVC is made by adding these plasticizers. The most common plasticizer which is used is phthalate. It's called. It is available in the market. If we just use these phthalates, mix these phthalates into polymer, the polymer becomes softens. So the third additive is carbon black. By adding this carbon black, the polymer becomes resistant to UV radiation. Okay. तो इसलिए आपने शायद ज़्यादातर ग्लास शील्ड जो देखी होगी जो कि यूवी रेडिएशन से प्रोटेक्ट करती है, दे आर जनरली black in color or some part of them is black. They are made black by adding an additive which is carbon black. The other common additives are like various colorants to impart certain colors. They are nothing but pigments of various colors. And then there can be various flame retardants which can be added into the polymers, especially the polymers which have application at high temperature. They all use some kind of flame retardant as an additive in them. And these flame retardants are nothing but they are some compounds of chlorine, bromine, and phosphorus. Okay. In fact, a very recent application of these flame retardant chemicals, like the chlorine compound, is making a ball which can be thrown into the area where the fire is, where is fire, and they can actually retard the fire or the flame or reduce the flame. So these additives can also be added into the polymers. As far as the polymers can also be categorized on the basis of their burning characteristics. Like there are fluorocarbons, if you remember. Fluorocarbons are like Teflon. They do not burn. It means that there is no flame. When I say they do not burn, it means that there is no flame and they can be directly converted into CO2 or CO without giving a flame. And then there may be carbonates. It may be vinyl carbonate or nylon carbonate. They burn, but they themselves the flame is not so high, and after some time the flame itself dies. These kind of polymers are called self extinguish. Okay, they burn but are self extinguish. Then there are some kind of polymers which are not self extinguishing. So for example, acrylic, ABS, polyester, polypropylene, styrene, and most of the polymers, they burn but not self extinguishing. So for these polymers, we need flame retardant. And most of the polymers are like this. The other additive which can be added into the polymer is lubricant. Any lubricant can be used. Okay. And the purpose of adding lubricants into a polymer is to reduce the friction. So this addition of lubricant reduces the friction while their transformation into some useful shape. So during the manufacturing process, it helps a lot if it is added with some kind of lubricants. It reduces the friction, which helps in subsequent processing and to make into useful product. It also prevents them from sticking them into the mold in which they are shaped into some useful product. So that's all for today.